Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name is Ivana Herenque if you are new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. Today is Monday, December the 6th. It's a dreary day here in Birmingham, but I think that Alabama fans don't even care about that. They're not going to let the weather keep them down because Alabama is back at number one. Alabama is headed to the college football playoffs. They are going to play in the Cotton Bowl on December the 31st. We're going to get all of that info here from our Alabama football reporter, Michael Casagrande. Now, Michael, you were at that game, I know, on Saturday, and I know this is going to be a busy month for you. So yesterday, we had a lot of news come out about this Alabama football team, about the rankings, and just the bowl game schedules in general. So if people unplugged yesterday on Sunday from this long weekend, what do they need to know waking up today?
Yeah, I mean, it's things are kind of back to normal in the sense that a lot of people would consider that Alabama's back at number one. Beating Georgia on Saturday, it was Saturday night by the time it was over, pushed them back to number one from number three. They play number four Cincinnati in New Year's Eve, 2:30 Central in Dallas, Arlington. So, Alabama, I guess, would be considered the favorite again to win a second straight championship. So yeah, it's, a big month ahead. They're back recruiting. Coaches are out recruiting right now. Award season's coming up this week. Award show Thursday, Heisman Saturday. So, there's plenty still going on, even if there aren't games until, the 31st.
So we know, again, Alabama back at number one. They're going to play number four Cincinnati in that game at the Cotton Bowl. And then we've got number three, Georgia. So Georgia moving to number three after that game on Saturday. They're going to face off against number two, Michigan, in the Orange Bowl, which is also on the 31st. So tell us about that pairing. And is that kind of what we expected to see in those other top two seeds?
Yeah, I mean, after the games on Saturday, I think there was very little drama Sunday where there had been in the past of who was going to be, which four teams are going to make the playoff, where would they be seated. I think it was pretty clear that Alabama would be one, Cincinnati four, then 2-3 with Georgia, Michigan. I mean, Cincinnati is a team. It's the first time a non-power conference team has made the playoff in 8 years. So it's a big deal for that in that sense that, they were able to beat Notre Dame earlier in the season. It was good scheduling for them on their part to beat the team that ended up as number 5 or 6 in the final playoff standing. So they had a quality win outside of other conference play because they, clearly their conference isn't as difficult as going through an SEC season, a Big Ten, ACC. So there will be a considerable underdog. I think they're about a 2-touchdown underdog at this point against Alabama. So it's going to be an interesting situation to see. These non-power conference teams have said they needed a spot at the table in the past. A UCF that claimed their own national championship a few years ago. So it's going to be, it's not going to be the sexy matchup that everyone's going to be talking about across the nation. It's kind of they're getting their chance at Cincinnati to show that they belong on that level. So it's a real tryout, I guess, for them to show that they belong among the elite, even though they didn't play, most of their season against elite competition.
Well, you talk about how Cincinnati will obviously be the underdog in this game against Alabama on the 31st at the Cotton Bowl. But we know a lot of times when it comes to these underdog stories, Cincinnati doesn't have anything to lose here. They have everything to gain and nothing to lose, while the opposite is true for Alabama. So we could see an upset. It's maybe not likely, but it is possible there. And the Georgia game, that is going to be a little bit more of a closer matchup. There's a little bit less, I think, of a clear idea who is the underdog there in that Georgia-Michigan game. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Alabama has at times this season overlooked, in a sense, some opponents. Texas A&M, possibly Florida. There were some times where they weren't as mentally sharp for some of these games where issues that you hadn't heard in previous years. So I think they have a full month to mold their minds and to convince them of the importance of this game, that obviously Cincinnati is going to be coming out with everything to prove. This is their chance to show that they belong. So, it's not a completely no pressure situation. I don't think people are expecting them to win outside of their program. So in that sense, yes, but I think they want to show something that they are among those elite programs that have been casting them out, shunning them, saying they don't belong for quite a while. So in that sense, yes. And Georgia, Michigan, that's going to be it's clearly that's why they've made that the primetime game, that they want that. They're going to expect more eyeballs on that game. It's going to be a more interesting game, probably, the way the styles of the teams match up. Michigan kind of going old school power football, and Georgia having a strong defense that maybe exposed a little bit by Alabama, but with a different style of play than what Michigan will bring. So that will be probably a more interesting, if you're a casual fan, which I'm sure there aren't too many watching right now, that would be more of an interesting matchup just on paper.
So it looks like there's a strong possibility we're going to see an Alabama-Georgia rematch in the championship game.
Either one of those two teams could come out of there, but it would not be shocking to see another Alabama-Georgia game.
Which, I think will be interesting for a lot of folks, but I think there's also a lot of people who say, look, I don't want Alabama to replay Georgia. Of course, maybe that sentiment has changed a little bit after Saturday's game. That was a lot more of a high-scoring game, a lot more of a gap than a lot of people expected. I do want to quickly talk about Auburn. I know we have some Auburn fans here that are watching and saying, look, what about us? So what is next for Auburn? What bowl is Auburn going to play in?
Yeah, they're heading to the Birmingham Bowl. I can't say I know too much about that opponent. Wasn't very prepping for them. Don't know. Can't say much about the Birmingham Bowl and what Auburn's facing up against. Maybe when the Auburn writers can help with that. But yeah, they 6-6 didn't fall into one of the power bowl games this year.
Birmingham Bowl, though, so if you are an Auburn fan and you are in the Birmingham or the central Alabama region, you have a short trip to the bowl game, not like you're having to make that trek over to Texas. And that bowl game at the Birmingham Bowl will be played at the new Protective Stadium where the Blazers have been playing this season in downtown Birmingham. So, Michael, when is the national championship? I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit after that December the 31st Cotton Bowl and Orange Bowl, but when is the championship game?
January 10th this year. It's in Indianapolis. They've been kind of moving them around to different regions for, different conference affiliations. It was in California 3 years ago now when Alabama played Clemson, Miami last year, New Orleans the year before that. So they're kind of moving it around to different places. So it's going to be a cold January in Indianapolis. I lived up there for two winters. It's not the friendliest of weather situations, but there's a lot to do downtown. They try to keep it pretty inside. There's a lot of ways of getting around without having to go outside. So but that's something for down the road if it comes to that.
That's something that I know Southern fans of Alabama and possibly of Georgia as well will be very, very, very grateful of having to make that trek up north, Michael. So I do want to ask you quickly what we learned after that game on Saturday, what we've heard from Nick Saban and from many of the players about this spot they've secured in the college football playoffs. I know that this is I believe it is the 7th time in 8 years that Alabama has made that trek.
Yeah, it's kind of routine at this point. It's not where some of the school at Michigan, they had a watch party to see the results of the playoff revealed, the bracket revealed. So and it wasn't really the case in Tuscaloosa. It's a business business trip. They're on to what the next game is. It's not new to them. So they said all the things that you expect them to say yesterday. That they're respecting their opponent. They're not going to overlook it. Saban kind of was laying those plans yesterday because. It's reinforce everything he says to the team through media appearances. So it's definitely trying to make sure that they're not thinking too much ahead about this game because there is that it would be easier to overlook a team like Cincinnati than it would be if they were playing a Michigan or a Georgia in that first one.
And we know that's something that Nick Saban has really always done. He's always focused on that next game. He doesn't try to get too far ahead of himself. And he always says too, like you mentioned, that these traditionally smaller teams, these traditionally teams that are not making the playoffs, that's somebody that you don't necessarily want to overlook.
No, they're going to have plenty of motivation to prove, this is their moment to prove that they can do it. So, different levels of motivation, different sources of motivation, but I don't think that Cincinnati is going to come in there. There's overlooking Alabama in any sense. So in that sense, they're going to be, shot out of a cannon.
I want to ask you before I let you go, Michael, about this Alabama team. We know that people have said all season that this is not the Alabama team we've seen over the past couple of years. There have been some kind of close calls. Again, they've only lost one game this season, so hard to say too much there about that team, but it's been a little bit different this year. So what have you seen there, and what are your takeaways on this Alabama team?
Yeah, no, it's a very different team than the one. I think this is my 11th or 12th year covering the team, and it's very unique. It's a unique team when you compare them to the other ones that, storylines from week to week change dramatically. From one week, the offense is great. One week, the next week, they can't do anything. Against Auburn, they had 68 first half yards against, and Auburn's a good defense, not one of the top defenses. Then Georgia, who has one of the best defenses in the past decade, they come out and score 24 points in the second quarter. So it's like one of those things that whatever happens the week before, the complete opposite is almost expected the next week. So it's interesting in that sense. It's sometimes difficult to write about because you're never really sure which team is going to show up. But it's definitely interesting. It's younger. The last year's team was very veteran, seniors, super seniors. They'd been around forever. They weren't. The mental side of the game was never really an issue with them last year, where this year there are more peaks and valleys. They're kind of going up and down a roller coaster at times, and it's been definitely more of a challenge for Nick Saban and his staff. So it's interesting. But at the end of the day, at the end of the regular season, they're back right where number one, right where they were a year ago. Different levels of expectations maybe, but they're back where they thought they'd be.
And where they want to be, I'm sure, and where the fans want them to be as well. So remember, you can watch number 1 ranked Alabama versus number 4 Cincinnati in the Cotton Bowl on December the 31st. That's the afternoon game. I believe it is at 2:30 Central Standard Time. We will leave all that information here in the comments. You can also, if you're an Auburn fan or if you just want to watch all of the SEC schools, Auburn will be playing in the Birmingham Bowl located at Protective Stadium in downtown Birmingham. And we will give you all of that information here in the comments. So, Michael, thank you for breaking this down, especially for people maybe who tuned out a little bit yesterday and who are waking up to some of this news and trying to catch up. So we really appreciate it.
Yep. Happy to do it.
Michael, thank you. Everybody watching, thank you so much. And we will see you tomorrow.